Hello, Scott Chocolate here. Say, I want to do a video called Ask a Filipina. Thought it'd be an interesting topic. I've been to the Philippines several times. I currently have a Filipina girlfriend. Anyway, YouTube, I watch a few channels, mainly on YouTube. I watch a few channels that are done by Americans, but they're in the Philippines. The four of them that come to mind, the original one was called A Foreigner in the Philippines. This is an 80-year-old man married to a 30-year-old Filipina. Sounds crazy, but it's really not uncommon over there. Another one is they all live fairly close to each other on the island of Bohol, but nonetheless, and they all know each other actually. And the other one's called a foreigner living in the Philippines, so they all kind of breed off that same theme. And anyway, that couple, the guy is 59, the woman is 20, so another huge age gap. Anyway, the other one probably that I watch most of all is called A Foreigner Farming in the Philippines. This couple, Brian and Maricel, I think they're fairly close in age, let's say within 10, 12 years. I suspect he's in his mid to late 50s and she's in her mid to late 40s. Maybe the one thing they all have in common is they're all trying to get their wives pregnant. As Meatloaf said, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, because I believe right now that 2 out of the 3 are pregnant. Unfortunately, the one having problems is the 80-year-old. Hopefully not for the lack of effort, but nonetheless, haven't heard any success there, but I believe the other 2 are both pregnant. Anyhow, the other channel I watch, when he puts videos up, he's not as frequent as putting videos up as these other 3, but it's a channel called Overstay Road. Now, this guy's comical as hell. He's got a couple children. He's married, 1 child with a baby mama, 1 child with his current wife. He's carried 2 or 3 girlfriends on the side that will live with him and his wife, and I think has an open checkbook to go do whatever the hell he wants. Like I said, it's entertaining. I don't know how common that is. I suspect not very common, but for what it's worth, I guess maybe it's real, maybe it isn't. I don't know how much of it is play acting, but it's the channel. It's kind of interesting to watch. Anyway, so dating a Filipina, what's it like? Why the age gap, let's say? I'll answer with this, is because it's acceptable, and it happens. I would say in the United States, where I live, the age gap between men and women throughout the majority of their life, unless there's a astronomical amount of money involved, the average age gap is probably 4 to 5 years either way. Generally, the man is older than the woman, but not always. And I don't have any statistics to back that. That's just my general perception. But anything over 10 years, yeah, it happens, but it's not that common. 20 years, very seldom, like I said, unless there's some money involved. You go to the Philippines as a white man from the West, foreigner, you can date as young as you want. And I'm not saying that to brag or anything. I'm just saying that's kind of just the way it is. Why is it that way? Well, There's maybe a lot of schools of thought on that. Um, the Philippines is poor, and until you've been there, traveled, saw some of the rural areas, even some of the city areas, and understand how the average Filipina gets by, maybe that comes into play. Every foreigner that comes over there is perceived as being rich. And to them, you are rich. I mean, you come from a Western country. You're middle to upper middle class, let's say. Not rich by your own standards, but rich by their standards. So when you come across your average Filipina, for one, they like white skin. Now, I'm by no means racist. I have so much color in my family, it's unbelievable. But that's the Filipina culture. They have products on their shelf to make your skin whiter. I just kind of laugh at it. I think it's funny because we as Westerners tan during the course of the summer to get our skin brown, and not just the Filipinos, but almost every Asian stays out of the sun because they don't want to get brown. Brown to them is associated with the working class and the poor and the people who are forced to work outside and at menial jobs that get tanned. And also I think they've been maybe not some, besides the color that, the skin is damaged by the sun, and it's best just to stay out of it. Plus they have sun constantly. It's hot as balls over there. So for the most part, their cool day is when it gets down to 80 degrees. And, their hot days are, 95 or 100 with high humidity. So the fact that they don't seek the sun, I can understand that. They have plenty of sun in their life. But traveling in the Philippines, it's interesting because, they speak a couple languages, Tagalog and Visayan as native languages, and a lot of the population speaks English. Now, I'll say a lot because it isn't, maybe as common as you might think. I would say half the people speak English or some form of English, and some obviously better than others. But saying that, English, all you need to know is English to really get around over there, because there's enough English spoke to where you'll be understood, even if they don't speak it back to you very well. But, the interesting thing is, you hop in a cab, with your Filipino girlfriend, and, the taxi cab drivers, they got, getting some bad rap over mistreating foreigners, or, somewhat trying to take advantage of the situation with them. But so you hop into a cab with a Filipina, and they don't know the dynamics of the relationship that you may have going on, or your level of trust, or even how long you've even known each other. Some of them, they'll just do their business, charge you what they're supposed to, get you from point A to point B, and life goes on. But I would probably guess that close to a third, or maybe even higher, will try to feel out your Filipina girlfriend or gal that's with you, just to kind of see what relationship you have, and see if they can fleece a little extra money out of you. And they've got several creative ways to do that. They'll try to not use their meter, say that they don't use the meter here, which is utterly bullshit. But or they'll come out and just try to quote you a price. They may just outright ask you, "Hey, can you pay a little extra?" And the interesting thing is, this is all going on in a language you don't understand. And all the times this was happening to me, I didn't even know what was going on. I'm looking out the window, looking at this, looking at that, smiling, waving, doing whatever, having a good old time, because I'm just an ignorant foreigner that has no idea the conversation is happening between my girlfriend and the taxi cab driver. And, It might be a day later, a week later, a month later. She tells me, remember that cab ride we had there? Well, that was this cab driver. Well, he was trying to do this, he was trying to do that. And I'm like, really? I said, yeah. They may ask, we know he's got some money because, he's a foreigner and he's over here. And, they're going to try to get a little extra out of you. Me personally, it's like, yeah, I understand it. But maybe you need to understand their way of life. A middle-class Filipino, let's say, what's a middle-class Filipino? A middle-class Filipino, here's a very stereotypical Filipino family. There's 3 generations living together, because that's about all that there usually is around. I don't think they live exceptionally old that you're going to get 4 generations, but almost every house has got 3 generations. They've got the older parents, they've got the, let's call them, middle-age, next generation, their kids, 1, 2, 3, 4, who knows how many are still living at home. Depends on their marital status. And then a lot of times the children of those kids, if they're unmarried, what have you. So the average house has probably got anywhere from 6 to 12 people living in it. I would say closer to 12. But for instance, my girlfriend, she has her parents, her sister, herself, her son, and her sister's 2 kids for 7. Now, from time to time, her brother is home, but he generally is, he's there enough because, he's there helping with the family. And they may have a cousin or somebody that's dropped off and stays there. So on the average, it's a strong 7, maybe 8 people that are constantly in that household. And generally speaking, the income is coming from 2 or 3 people that are probably in that, those middle generations where the parents are no longer working, but that middle generation is the one who's supporting the family. And when the money comes into the family, it's divvied up, somewhat accordingly, I suppose, to need, but also, probably whoever's making it has a little more control over what happens with it. But, it's shared. It isn't like our families where, your money is your money, and it very seldom does it transfer around the family. Boy, here, the Philippines, the little bit of money they have is shared quite readily. But that's just how their family culture is. Is it better than ours? Yeah, I don't know. They have closer families, but they need to have closer families. The limited amount of money they have has to go a long ways, so they depend on each other to help share and do things for each other. When one runs short, they can rely on another one a little bit to help bridge the gap, so to speak. Probably the most noticeable thing is over there is money flows uphill from the younger generations up. One of the reasons they want to have children is because they depend on their children to take care of them when they get older, and the money flows uphill. The United States, traditionally, the money flows the other way from some of the older generations down. Now, that isn't 100% true, but it's a good, it's a good school of thought anyhow, how as a generic, rule, the money will flow. All right, you guys, enough with the barking. All right, I'm busy. Goodness, these 2. So, that's kind of an interesting, family dynamics. But, so you get back to the case where you've got, foreigners coming over and marrying, women that are, according to their own standards, significantly younger than them. Why? Why not? Because they can. who's taking advantage of who? That's always the big question. Is it, the younger Filipina taking advantage of the older foreigner who has money, or is it the older foreigner taking advantage of the innocence of the younger Filipino because they're, a younger, attractive woman, I don't know. How the hell would I know? It depends to me, it depends on the individual. My experience would tell me this. A Filipino woman, they're great. They can be great, but they aren't all great. It's no different than any other place in the world. Some are good, some are bad, some are looking for things the wrong way, some are looking for things the right way. But I do know this, the vast majority grow up extremely poor, considering our standards. You could look at a middle-class family, and they would be substantially below our poor, as we would compare their standard of living. So how do you not, how do you really wrap your head around all that, and saying, wow, that person is just after that person for their money. Hell, that happens in the United States all the time. Look at the perceived rich or the rich, and look at some of the mates that they can attract. It isn't based on their looks or their personality. It's based on their pocketbook. Is that what happens in the Philippines? Yeah, in some cases, I'm sure it is. Is it what always happens? Absolutely not. The foreigner in the Philippines, he's got a ton of subscribers. He's done a lot of good things over there. Terrence is his name, I believe. Beth is his wife. I think she's 30. He's 80. It's his granddaughter's age, I suppose, if he has children, granddaughters, I don't know. But, they have what I would perceive as a decent, solid relationship. They're candid and open with each other. Is that normal for us? Well, absolutely not. What's normal? Normal is what we're used to. So we don't see that. So the average person say, well, that's just not normal, or that's not right. And say, well, who the hell are you to decide what's right? Who made you God? That's what my mom would say. But, so then you look at the former farming in the Philippines. Now those two, Brian and Maricel. Similarly, like I said, he's maybe 10 years older than her, so not significantly older, but, a little bit. Probably more than what you'd see in the United States, but nothing that would be totally alarming. And, they have what I would say is a pretty normal relationship. I actually like watching his channel because he's got pigs and chickens and gardening and a lot of stuff I like to do. I'm not into necessarily raising the pigs and chickens anymore, but, excuse me. But, he puts on a real life, this is what's happening to me today. And we got sick pigs, we got dead chickens, we got happy times, we got sad times, we got, 600 dogs walking around getting bred and having puppies. And this is like what goes on over there. But, it's real, and it's his life. Is he happy? Yeah, I think so. Looks like it. He kind of came from being in California where he just wasn't happy with life, and it made a big change, and looks like things are working out for him. The whole farming business, I think the farming business in the Philippines is about like farming in the United States. They both suck. I don't think he makes a dime farming. He lays out his prices and stuff here and there, but so far I don't think he's turned a profit farming. I don't know if he ever will. It'd be interesting to see if he ever gives up on that idea. I'm guessing the YouTube channel is a source of income other than, whatever other income he has. I have no idea, but farming sure as hell isn't a source of income for him. But nonetheless, you can see his progress on the farm, what they're doing, what they're raising, his successes, his failures. It's kind of entertaining. Probably the most entertaining one is the Overstay Road guy, King Marcos. I guess I would, if you do ever check that channel out, you'll understand what I mean, but that I would just use that one for entertainment value. I even in the Philippines, I would have to think, most Filipinas seem to be somewhat possessive and jealous, and I can't imagine, how he's come up with a gal he's married to that lets him, do whatever he wants, carry a couple girlfriends on the side, all shack up together and have a merry time in life, because that just doesn't seem friggin' possible to me. But, more power to him if that's really going on. But it's entertaining. He does some videos sober, but he does a lot of them when he's been drinking and pretty rowdy and drunk. And like I said, he don't apologize for anything he does, but it is entertaining. So anyway, Overstay Road, it's called. Check it out if you like that. As far as dating a Filipino, here's what I think about it is, for the most part, I think it'll, really, as an individual, make you feel good about yourself. If you find yourself a good Filipina, yeah, there's nothing better. One of the interesting things in the Philippines that, there's no such thing as divorce. It's maybe one of the few countries in the world, there's no such thing as a divorce. So if you're married in the Philippines, you cannot get divorced. So that, unfortunately, maybe ends up having a lot of couples that don't get married. They don't rush into marriage for that reason, and ends up probably having a lot of women that end up having children out of wedlock because of that, which, maybe makes them, even harder to find a local Filipino once they, indeed have children and aren't married. Doesn't make them bad people by any means. But, I do see a fair amount of that. When you kind of just, look around, you do see that, single mothers. But, yeah, but, they're individuals, they're women, they're people that, have their own thoughts, their own ideas. So to stereotype them and say, hey, all the Filipinos are this, that's, utter bullshit, really, because, they're just as individual as anybody else in the world. Do they have some characteristics? Sure. The country is a Catholic country, so, the majority of people, 85, 90%, are Catholics. And there's some beautiful churches over there. There's one on my site that we went to see that's, just phenomenal. It's just this huge shrine of a church. Apparently they just keep building and building on this thing, but it's quite an establishment. I will say one thing, if you're dating a Filipino, when you go over there, you're going to go visit churches just to see churches. They do that, in the United States, not so common. You get drugged to church, once a week when you were young, and as you get old, you decide whether you want to go, and you go, you know, if you want to, if you don't, you don't. Over there, it seems to be, you know, like a thing they want to do, and they do it, and they do it constantly. They'll go to church just to, apparently we have this thing about lighting candles. You know, it's balls hot over there, and you walk into a church. Of course, it's all kind of an open air area, and you know, you pay some, you know, a few pesos, and you get these candles, and you set them on these racks, and you just kind of light them on fire, say some prayers, watch them burn. I'm not really sure the significance behind it, but it's just part of the culture of their Catholic religion. So it's kind of cool, you know. Something that as a Catholic, you know, we never really, you know, did on a regular basis. You know, from time to time there was a candle mass, but you didn't just go walking into the church and start burning up candles for no apparent reason. Yeah, there's a peach ale. Red's peach ale. It's really good. I don't know how else you not say it's really good. It's peach flavored, for crying out loud. Anyway, but yeah, so I think you have to kind of treat it as individuals and get to know them as individuals, just like you would anywhere else in the world. They do have some traits. Now, some traits are going to be that they're closely connected with their family, and their family is not just their brothers, their sisters, their parents, but it's going to be cousins, second cousins, aunts, uncles, spouses of cousins, and, for the most part, they generally have pretty big families. I don't know the exact amount. I kind of added up one time, but Hannah, we'll call her Hannah Banana. She's got, give or take 70 or 75 cousins, first cousins. And I forget how many, I don't know, there's like 5 or 6 in her dad's family, and I don't know, about 11 or something in her mom's family. So that group of people had, 75 kids, let's say. So, obviously they're closer to some more than the others, but when they start talking about family, it's those people, and their perception of foreigners are, I guess it's probably kind of the same. Is that they view all foreigners coming over there for the most part as people of means, strictly because they're there. Now, I've traveled to Mexico a lot, and the Mexicans kind of had that same impression of foreigners that came down to visit. But I would say it's even to more extreme in the Philippines. The Philippines is a much poorer country than Mexico. 50% or better of the population lives in what we would call extreme poverty. If you get out into, either the villages way out in the provinces, or even some of the very, what they call squatter areas in the cities. There's people that live in what would be nothing more than, very modest shelter, with a tin roof. At best, maybe have electric run, so they've got electricity, light and an electrical outlet in the building, but there's a good chance they don't have running water in the house, or if they do, the water they do have, they may have to haul from a well nearby, and that's how they get their water to bathe, to wash their clothes. Clothes are washed with a bar of soap and by hand for the most part in the Philippines. Some people have some washing machines, but it's more common that they do their laundry by hand. So their standards and our standards are so far apart, it's really hard to even compare. Our poverty standard whatever it is, I think it's somewhere around, say, $20,000 a year, you know, give or take, is our standard of poverty. Hell, if a Filipino's making $20,000 a year, they're considered rich. You know, that's, you know, $700-800 a month, or no, hell no, it's more than that, twice that much. You know, $1,700-1,800 a month, whatever that math is, I don't know. That's way more than they're used to living on. You know, a family of 6, 8, or 10 is probably used to living on $600-800 a month. You know, so how do they make ends meet? I'm not really sure, honestly. I can honestly say that they tolerate a lot of crap. You know, there's things broke in the house, things that don't work. You know, when it gets down to emergencies, if they have an emergency, they may or may not have money. You know, you don't just, you know, here's one thing about medical care. You know, if somebody in the United States gets seriously hurt or has an issue and they show up at the emergency room, you know, they're not going to let them die. They're going to do whatever they do to, you know, to treat the emergency, really before they ask too many questions. But, you know, nobody's going to, you know, die at the emergency room because the hospital is, you know, worried about not getting paid. Now try that in the Philippines. You know, not the case. You don't have money, might as well not show up at the hospital. They're going to look at you like, say, sorry, but no money, no care. And does that sound, you know, is that cruel? I don't know. I'm not here to judge their culture. I'm just telling you the reality of the situation. If you don't have money, it doesn't really matter what happens. You don't have money, you'll die outside the door, bleeding to death, you know, because they aren't going to do anything. And I'm not joking about that. I'm dead serious, even though I'm drinking a beer. So, how do you want to compare their life to our life, and why a woman who's 20, 30, 40 years old chooses to find security in somebody who's 10, 20, 30, 40 years older than themselves? I don't know. That's being pretty damn hypocritical, considering, you know, if you live in the West where you don't worry about shit like that. You don't worry about where your next meal is coming from. You don't worry about that if something happens to me and I get my arm cut off, I'm going to bleed to death because nobody will treat me because I don't have money. You don't worry about that because, you know, push comes to shove, the hospital will get in trouble for not treating you. Over there, they have an armed guard at the hospital, and generally speaking, that's so nobody can sneak out of the hospital without paying their bill. It's not to keep people from getting in necessarily, it's to keep people who haven't paid their bill from getting out. Because believe it or not, you'll be in the hotel hospital for quite a time if you don't pay your bill. They just throw you in a thing called the ward, and every day you're there, you get charged room and board until such time you got enough to cover your bill and get the hell out of there. So, you know, that's where your family's out scrambling with the whole family to try to come up with enough money to get old, you know, Pedro out of jail or out of hospital jail. Yeah, I'm not shitting about that either. That's God's honest truth. You know, and that, you know, we can call this series "Ask a Filipino," and I can get you firsthand answer to that one. That is not bullshit. That is true. But so, you know, their life is significantly different than ours. You know, their economic system. You know, it took me a while to kind of adjust to the thought, and you know, you think about it, it makes sense. A lot of people are paid, you know, daily cash, maybe weekly or whatever. Who knows? You know, but on, you know, for instance, to hire somebody to do, say, construction work for you, it's going to cost you 500 pesos for labor in a day. Okay, an 8-hour day, that's $10. So for $10, some guy will come over and, do carpentry work on your house, whatever, garden, whatever, whatever it is, whatever the task is, a plumber, anything literally is about, $10 a day or what, $1.25 an hour. It seems ridiculous, doesn't it? Yeah. So, start running that math out, and what does that person make in a month, considering he doesn't necessarily always have consistent work. So yeah, he may make, $200-300 tops in the course of a month. So, how do you sustain a family? Well, you have a few people doing that, and they're all living under one roof. And they don't have luxuries like we have luxuries. Hot water over there, yeah, I would say if I was to take a stab, 10 to 15% of the population has hot water in their house. Some of them might have had it, but it broke and they never fixed it. Yeah, the richer people do. All the not American necessarily, but all the foreign expats that live there and those people who are used to that, absolutely, they have hot water in their house. The average Filipino, no hot water. They're lucky to have running water, So you have to understand their lifestyle, significantly different. Is it good? Is it bad? I mean, there's good things about it. There's bad things about it. I'm just kind of telling you my perception of it. But all in all, they've learned to adapt. They prioritize based on what they have, and they make it work. If they don't have money for this, they don't buy that. If they can't fix that, they don't fix that. If their roof is leaking, it's going to leak until they have extra money to fix it. Who knows what the situation may be. But, they always prioritize from, okay, first thing is we're going to feed ourselves, and then we're going to, go with our other needs and kind of work up, generally speaking, they run out of money long before need, but, it's just the way of life for them over there. But, their economic system's always, kind of interesting. I might, I wasn't around in the 50s, but I would think that it was maybe a lot like our system in the 50s, where, for instance, you'll have what they call a barangay, which is, like a ward of the city, but it's in like an area in town that has its own mini little local government. And some are richer than others, no different than, areas of town here. But say your average poor barangay, they have what they call sari stores, S-A-R-I, not sorry, but sari. And basically it's a variety store, but they're just little mom and pop shops that for the most part sell beer, pop, staples of life, charcoal, soap, various things rice, things that coffee, things that people will want on a almost a daily basis. Now, your average Filipino will buy what they need for that day on that given day. Why? Well, two reasons. Probably it's all the money they have. So they end up paying a premium, obviously, for that when you're buying, where else in the world can you buy one cigarette at a time? Yeah, the Philippines you can. Just walk up to any sari store and say, I want one cigarette. I don't know how to say one in Tagalog or Visayan, but just say, I want one cigarette. It's probably 4 pesos, which is 8 cents. Yeah, not a bad profit probably for them. I guess I knew what the heck she was paying for cigarettes. I asked a lot of those questions. I kind of forget right now. But nonetheless, you can buy a pack, you can buy a cigarette. But the vast majority would walk up and buy one cigarette at a time. Just like they go up and they'll buy a beer. one beer at a time. Generally, they'll buy a big beer, share it with 4 of their buddies, and then go buy another big beer and share it with 4 of their buddies and drink out in the street, which is, kind of another thing. But, they'll buy rice a kilogram or a half a kilogram at a time, which, kilograms a little over 2 pounds. So, a pound of rice. So a pound of rice, half a kilogram or kilogram, whatever. They take it home, and that's probably what they eat in the course of the day, because the average Filipino family lives on rice. They'll eat it, 3 times a day. Meal's not a meal, unless you got rice. So rice. Yeah, us Westerners don't eat rice to that extent. I mean, if I eat rice a couple, 3 times a month, that's enough for me. I just have never gotten accustomed to eating rice. But, over there, that's their staple food. And it's, give or take, let's say about 40 cents a kilogram. So that's, give or take about 35, 40 cents, about 40 to 45 cents a pound, I think, as you would do the math. But, so let's say under 50 cents a pound. So a couple kilograms, for $1, they're at least getting something inside of everybody. There may be a little vegetables, a little meat, various things that go with that. But for the most part, the poor are eating rice. That's what they eat, a lot of rice. But, these stores will sell, all these things to everybody each and every day. The same person may come back every day and buy a kilogram of rice. It's like, all right, my thought, what I would do is like, I don't go to the store every day. I can't go to the store every day. Don't want to go to the store every day. If I was going to eat a kilogram of rice, I'd be buying it, 25 kilograms at a time. I had a big sack at home if I was going to eat that much. It's like, don't want to go to the store that often, We have freezers. We freeze things we use a lot of. We have refrigerators. We have the ability to keep things fresh and cool, so you can put it in the, in the freezer or the refrigerator. I don't know what percentage of Filipinos have refrigerators. For argument's sake, I would say half. The other half don't. Where else can you make a business selling ice, to that extent? Just take bags, fill it up with water, put it in a freezer, let it freeze, and sell it, for 3 pesos for a, bag of ice a little bigger than the size of this beer. Because that's how, let's, give or take 50% of the population keeps the little bit of food they may have on hand cold in a cooler, and how they cool their water and their other drinks so they aren't, 90 degrees. They'll put a chunk of ice in it. And so every day they're buying some ice, just like they're buying some rice, ice and rice, and pop, beer. I love beer. I got a couple kinds of beer over there. San Miguel Light. They got this one called Red Horse, which is kind of I don't know, maybe compared to like one of our malt liquors or something. I don't know. It's kind of very strong stuff. But I think I tried it once. Yeah, I don't know. I can maybe do their other beers before I do that. But they also have some cheap-ass rum. I forget the name, Tangoai or something like that. Just cheap. I mean, when I say cheap, I don't know, I don't remember for sure, but I'm thinking about $3 for what we considered a fifth or a quart here, a pretty good sized bottle. So cheap by most any standard as far as getting a big bottle of liquor. But anyway, So anyway, in all these residential areas, you'll have all these little sorry stores that sell what they call the staples of life, whatever they all are: ice, beer, pop, charcoal, rice, soap, coffee, cigarettes, everything you got to have to survive, you know. The Filipinos have as many vices as everybody else. They like to drink, they like to smoke, you know, all those types of things, and sometimes they prioritize that over their daily needs of feeding their family, but, that's a topic for another time. But, it's interesting because, Hannah runs one of these stores. So I've asked, and I know I'd have to maybe refresh myself with her, but I've asked all the prices for all this stuff, and their margins are small, very small. Maybe in the United States, with the exception of the big companies, you might think that you got about 100% markup. You pay $1, you sell for $2. In the Philippines, I would say it's maybe about a 15 or 20% markup. So if you bought it for $1, you're going to sell it for $1.20. So they don't make a lot on stuff. Mainly because you only have to walk about for 3 minutes to get from one sorry store to the next sorry store, and so on and so forth, all around the neighborhood. They're literally everywhere. So, once the market is established, you can't be higher than that market, or they'll just walk to the next place. So unfortunately, they're their own worst enemy when it comes to a business plan because of competition. Business in the Philippines, for the most part, I would suggest to stay away from it. I've got a few ideas of a few things that I think might work. But, don't do exactly what everybody else is doing, because, if the average Filipina can muster up enough capital to open a chicken stand or a sorry store, there's going to be so many of them that, the amount of money that you're going to make at it is so minor that you would not even consider it worth your time. You got to realize that the average person is going to work for $10 a day. So if you started a business and you came home at the end of the day with $10, you'd be pretty goddamn disappointed. I know I would be. What are some business ideas over there? I don't know. I watch Brian and Marisol. I sure as hell don't think it's pig farming. It's like, oh, balls. I don't know. But, they eat a lot of pig. They eat a lot of chicken. They like it too. I wouldn't eat too much beef over there. That really sucks. But, chicken and pork. It's basically what they eat. And a lot of vegetables and fish. A ton of fish. But anyway, I just saw a Skype video come across that Hannah said good evening, so she's waiting for me to call her back. But anyway, I want to wrap this one up. This is my first video and maybe a series of what we'll call Ask the Filipino. So if somebody's got any, question they think they need to ask, then I can ask the Filipino, and maybe if it's asked enough, post a video on, hey, what's the actual response from the Filipino? So anyway, just like any other good guy, I better get my ass going here because she's calling, and if I don't get back to her, she'll wonder what the hell I'm doing. So anyway, take care. Bye-bye.